Hello, Deerna Club. This is Andy Licht, live from Big Bad Con, and I am sitting down with Caro Asercion. Caro, for people who don't know you or your work, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Caro Asercion. I am the game designer behind titles like I'm Sorry Did You Say Street Magic, Exquisite Biome, Last Train to Bremen. I'm a theater maker, I'm a game designer, I'm an interdisciplinary artist, and I'm really happy to be here.
Sweet, and we're so happy to have you. So, you are a you come from a theater background. Is that what you were doing before games, or did those things happen in parallel?
Yeah, so I got my background. Growing up as a kid, I always thought I was going to do visual art. I had a real interest in cartoons, a real interest in animation, and I got into theater through the scenic construction, the elements of technical theater that needed to go on in order to make a production happen live on stage. And so I worked my way from technical theater backwards into kind of the artistic side of theater, realizing, okay, there's really interesting stuff happening in contemporary new play development. And from there, I kind of concurrently got into game design, because I think so much of game design is really connected to So much of game design is really deeply connected to and related to this idea of play, fundamentally.
Totally, absolutely. How then did you get started? How did you enter into the world of TTRPGs? And how do the two things, they are connected, how do they relate for you? And how do you think elements of theater show up in your designs?
Yeah, I actually got into tabletop games through actual play podcasts, because I was reading these games, I was interested in these games, I was like, oh, there are people out here who are doing this work, I want to do it, and I can't, because I don't have time, because I'm in rehearsal, or I'm busy building a set, or I'm reading these plays, and I don't have the time to hold, a consistent weekly gaming schedule.
Totally,
so I started listening to these podcasts, and I really got clued into just how deep the indie scene is. There are so many different games, and there are so many different folks who are uplifting all of the different kinds of stories that people are telling. And so from there, it kind of clicked in my mind. I was like, I don't have time to run a game with a 300-page rulebook, or a game that requires me to sit down for 5 hours every week.
Right.
But I could run a one-shot. I could sit down with a couple of friends and play something that takes, 2.5 hours, and then we're done.
Sure.
And it's a fully self-contained experience. I could make a game like that. That doesn't have to be the large, dense, overwhelming kind of game. Like, indie games take all shapes and sizes. And I realized, I could just start by making these really tiny, small, experimental, self-published pieces, and from there I kind of made my way back up into, I can make some larger games. I can try some zines, I can try experimenting and really finding my foothold into something that's a little bit more substantial.
Yeah, I love that you were able to take bite-sized pieces and make games that were approachable, especially because theater work is a lot. Your schedule is packed. Has any of your theater background, you said you worked as a dramaturge for some time.
Yes.
How has that shown up in your games, or do the two things feel different for you?
They definitely interact with each other. I think theater is such an inherently collaborative medium. I often make the joke that dramaturgy is one of the most collaborative roles in theater, and it has to be, because dramaturgy is research and contextualizing the relationship between the text of a play and the way that information is going to, the way that the play is going to land for the audience, right?
Sure.
And if you're just doing that without an audience or without any collaborators in the room, it's just research, right? You're just doing a book report, right? And so necessarily that work means, okay, I can't do this alone. This has to be a dialogue. And so I think that really informs my interest in games that are intrinsically collaborative, intrinsically invite people to build off of each other's ideas together and create something that no one person could have created alone.
Right. Yeah, this whole part of your background is collaboration and bringing multiple perspectives together for one idea, so it just makes perfect sense for you.
Absolutely.
So, Caro, moving on to some of the games that you've made, one in particular is I'm Sorry, Did You Say Street Magic? Here at Deernicorn, we love it, and it seems like people love it too. We can't carry enough of it. What is I'm Sorry, Did You Say Street Magic?
I'm Sorry, Did You Say Street Magic is a GM-less city-building story game. It is a game where, over the course of play, players construct a city by introducing and declaring different neighborhoods that might reside in that city, different landmarks that might be within those neighborhoods, and residents who might live or be associated with or work with or have some relationship to those landmarks. But it's not necessarily geographic. You're not mapping each neighborhood specifically on a map. The mapping that you're doing is relational. It's okay, what is the relationship between this person and the landmark, the place that they live or the place that they work, in a way that is less bounded and less confined by geography. The idea is every place that we go has a hidden magic and has a history to someone. And let's find out who that person is. Let's find out who those people are and build out the story of the city as a whole by exploring all of the millions of individual stories that are nested inside.
I love it. And yeah, the relational element of the map in Street Magic is one of my favorite parts about it. We're not being literal, but we're highlighting things in the city that matter to us. So moving on, I'm Sorry, Did You Say Street Magic is out now. You should absolutely get it. Incredible game. Get it wherever you can. You have some new games that are out or on the horizon in various forms. One of those is Exquisite Biome, which I got the chance to play. Tell us about Exquisite Biome.
Yes, Exquisite Biome is another GM-less game. It's a game of speculative biology. So rather than introducing details into a city, it's a game that takes place in a natural environment. Over the course of play, players are creating strange, fabulous creatures that might be very fantastical, they might be mundane, they might exist in the real world. And essentially we're exploring what these animals are, the ways in which they move through their natural ecosystem, and as you create multiple different animals, the ways that they exist in relation to one another, right? Nothing in the natural world exists in a vacuum, and so this is a game that's really interested in the interplay between predators and prey, symbiotic relationships within nature, and how those animals exist with each other and exist with the natural world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, one of my favorite parts of the game is the way that everything got to interact with each other. We really did make this biome. Where did the idea for this game come from? Was it a particular work of fiction or a mechanic?
There were a couple of different starting points for this game. The first was I was really struck by this idea of using playing cards as prompts. All of the prompts in the game are based on playing cards, but you use the same cards and you recycle them over and over again because they're all interconnected within a single system. And so I had the idea in my mind of I want to make a game that uses these prompts but is recycling them over and over, and I don't know specifically what. And then I landed on nature, right? The idea of here is an environment where everything is deeply interconnected. And growing up as a kid, I was really interested in Animal Planet and nature documentaries and all of these, I had these books of speculative biology, all of these weird creatures or reconstructions of dinosaurs, of what if you looked at the bones of a dinosaur and misinterpreted them.
Right.
And so that idea of making up weird, funky little creatures really, really stuck with me. And I was like, I want to make a game that lets people do that because I think making up funky little guys is neat. And I think it's our God-given right, and we should all have the opportunity to make up a weird little guy.
We love the funky little guys. We really do. And yeah, for me it was those cycling cards that made everything interconnected that really made the game sing. So I just have two more questions for you. My first one is about another game that you have currently coming out, if I understand correctly.
It's out digitally. It's not out in print yet.
All right, out digitally, and you must check it out. And this game is called Last Train to Bremen. What is it? Would you happily tell us about it?
Yeah, Last Train to Bremen is a tragedy for 4 players. It's a 4-player game exactly. Tells the story of 4 musicians who struck a deal with the devil, then got it in their head to try and outrun their end of the devil's bargain. But turns out he doesn't necessarily take kindly to those who go back on their word. So now the 4 of them are huddled in the back of a boxcar on a train, hurtling to the one place that they hope they will be able to escape from the devil's grasp. But you know, the deal with the devil is a long and storied one, and so as they are sitting, they are simmering and thinking about all of the different resentful relationships that have built up over time, the relationships between bandmates, and the ways that all of the things could have gone differently, and all of the ways that things went wrong.
So this game, Last Train to Bremen, strikes me as different from did you say Street Magic and Exquisite Biome in certain ways? And those 2 games were kind of building and exploring things, whereas this game is much more about these interpersonal relationships in a way.
Yeah.
Was there a spark or something that made you shift perspectives or focus between games?
Yeah, I mean, going back to our previous question about theater, the thing that I was really, really interested in with writing Last Train to Bremen was creating a self-contained, one-shot, 3-hour experience that was highly theatrical, that was highly grounded in deep interpersonal relationships. That was something that was, you know, maybe not as quite as open to interpretation of, okay, we're going to make things up whole cloth, and giving people enough of a springboard to jump off of so that they can play these, these dysfunctional musicians and know, okay, here's the relationship between them. Yeah. And so I was hoping to start from there.
I mean, your theater background must have really come through, because I've heard many people who've played it at this con say that it was the most theatrical gaming experience they've ever had, and one of the most dramatic and involved. And it's folks, if you can get the digital copy, you simply must.
Keep your eye out for the print version at some point.
And keep your eye out for the print version for sure. My final question to you, Caro, is if you could give any advice to a new game designer or a younger version of yourself, what would that advice be?
Yeah, I would say find people who are also starting out, other designers who are emerging, other designers who are maybe early career, who are trying to figure out what exactly their niche is, and befriend them and build relationships with them and find ways to make consistent friendships and conversation about the work that you are doing with them. If you can build a relationship with people who are building each other up at the same time, it's all the stronger. I think there's value in building relationships with folks who are already developed in the industry and networking and trying to find relationships there. But so much of many of the strongest relationships that I have are ones that I keep from when I was first starting out. People who I just met as I was, self-publishing tiny little experimental one-page games. And I think there's such value in keeping those friendships and having a long developmental and creative history with the people you're interested in.
I think that's some of the best advice I've heard, and I've been asking this question all con, but certainly, being able to grow alongside someone is beautiful, and you're going to have a connection there that's, just a part of your life, and who knows your work. So, Caro, if we want to know more of your work or to keep up with you, where can we find you online, assuming you want to be found?
You can find my games online at Sea Excursion, that's SEA excursion.itch.io.
Love it. Okay, we'll link to Sea Excursion on itch in the description. Caro, I'll let you get back to the con. Thank you so much for chatting. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.